Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Wow, I'm right in front of this. There we go. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. This is our weekly front door to the startup community here in Anchorage. We like to say, where's that advancer? Perfect. Thank you. We're trying this out. This hasn't worked for us in several weeks, so it works. Yes. All right. We're starting out. We got one thing working great. That's a positive. If you can start every day with a positive affirmation, you can make it happen. I'd like to ask all of you to take your cell phones out while you're here. And you can use this QR code to check in today. This works whether you're here live in our audience. This works whether you're joining us on Zoom, whether you're joining us on Facebook, or even if you're watching this presentation later. This helps us to see who is interested in these presentations. This helps us to see who's part of our community. And it helps us to justify to the Kauffman Foundation that this community wants 1 Million Cups to be successful here. So we need your help. Please check in, and while you got your phones out, go to your social medias, go to your Facebook, go to your YouTubes, your YouTwit faces, and all of those things, and post out there what's going on, where you're at, what you're doing, and what's going on in the community right now. That's how we can grow and be more for you. The mission of 1 Million Cups, right up there on the screens, created by the Ewing Miriam Kauffman Foundation as a way to bring entrepreneurs together over a simple cup of coffee. There we go. Today we will be hearing from Steve Grabacki with Alaska Deep Ocean. And then following that, we will have a town hall here to discuss resources and access to those resources for 1 Million Cups and our startup community. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Steve to come and join us here.
Thank you, Alan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking time with me. Let's see, this way. Wake up. Come on. Be nice.
Yeah, see, you were smart, Ryan.
Yep. Okay. Alaska Deep Ocean LLC is something recently created. Greystar Pacific is my day job, and we develop human health from Alaska's ocean waters. Please. Should I aim it at a particular spot? Okay. 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 Oh, too much. Well. No. Okay. So deep ocean water creates health benefits, and there's a lot of trace elements in the deep ocean that are not available in surface water or in well water. And so you got physical stamina, lower blood pressure, athletic performance, and it's all good stuff for you. The plan is to go from Alaska to retail in recyclable aluminum bottles and cans. And am I standing in the right place, Alan?
You're good.
Okay. And please. Okay, it's marketable in 4 sectors: medical, wellness, fitness, and outdoor warfighter sectors. So current market opportunities we see there's no other northern deep ocean water. There's some in Hawaii and in Taiwan, but there's none here. And none at this latitude, Atlantic or Pacific. And there's electrolyte concentrations are much higher in our product than in sports beverages, and we're a lot closer to Pedialyte and some of these other real syrupy, sugary drinks, but we don't have any sugar or syrup. Yep. So we all know Alaska is really wonderful, cold, pristine, pure. And we know Alaska has great brand recognition on menus much higher than, say, Impossible Foods, Nutella, Oreo, Beyond Meat, or Tabasco. So Alaska is known. Okay, deep ocean water travels throughout the deep ocean conveyor belt and passes by Hawaii, where we did our phase 1 SBIR, comes up not to, but close to the surface in the Gulf of Alaska. Okay, we know the source water. I'm a biologist, spent a lot of time in the marine environment, and the Seward line is a line of oceanographic stations with data going back many, many decades. So I use that database to select where to get the raw material. Seward, Alaska is an excellent place for ocean-based businesses. It's a business-friendly climate and has access to deep ocean water about a mile offshore. So the idea is that deep seawater gets pumped ashore, desalinated, processed, purified, and put it in cans and bottles, and then ship them off to customers who are, come back. Okay, last year we completed a phase 1 SBIR at Hawaii Ocean Sciences Technology Park. Host Park is the ocean geek heaven. If you ever get down there, by golly, there's 3 tours, take the tours. We did our proof of concept, our initial formulations and methods, initial market development, in discussions with waste brine to sell the waste brine to Alaska sea salt companies and to buy extracts of berries and kelp with which to essence our products. 23-24, we want a large workspace at SMIC, Seward Marine Industrial Center, 1-mile pipeline from 150 meters depth to shore, production scale, and hiring staff and operations and all that. Want to do further research with exercise physiologists and nutritionists to demonstrate the efficacy of the product. And we're talking to Office of Naval Research about some defense-related applications. Early days on that. Nope. Okay. The next phase in branding and marketing and financing is developing the branding and the marketing, getting endurance athletes endorsements, and developing a website. The Denali Commission is very interested in helping us via the city of Seward. They can invest in profit businesses. Talking to a couple angels in Denver and Las Vegas. Chugach Alaska Corporation will at least consider this idea as part of its portfolio. We're in the Chugach Alaska region. And I'm trying to learn something about the Toronto Stock Exchange, but I understand that it's really, that's where a lot of Alaska mining projects get financed, but I understand it's really quite more difficult than working with an angel. There we go. So the team we have right now that's me, Kate Constantine from Rising Tide Communications is our marketing whiz. Jack Collinell is the oceanographer. Cal Kerr is the business case developer, and the famous Patrick Simpson, who you all know, is my advisor. So we're in the Upstart Alpha program now, and I hope to enter the G Beta program in a month or two. Customer discovery, which to a science geek like me is very intimidating and very much a foreign language. Marketing and brand penetration, starting with the distribution network from Alaska to Pacific Northwest and then the entire world. Looking for maximum investment, aren't we all, with minimal dilution? And I need guidance. I will need further guidance on financial management. Be nice. And that's me. That's the website, Greystar Pacific. And I have a little more beyond this. Do I have? Okay. An inspiration from my fellow Alaskans. If you ever get to Host Park on the Big Island, Hawaii Ocean Sciences Technology Park, it's NELHA, Hawaii.gov, National Energy Lab of Hawaii.gov. Ocean Laboratories, a fascinating company, as creative, I think, as Tesla or anything out of the Charles River area. And for goodness sakes, read Intellectual Anarchy by Patrick Sullivan, who runs Oceanit and is an absolute genius and somebody who I admire greatly. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Excellent presentation. I appreciate you sharing what's going on. What questions do we have out here?
Cool stuff, Steve. So, you know, the first thing that's on top of my mind is that there's been folks like out at Eklutna and others that have been trying to develop the cachet around Alaska water and have tried getting into this area, and some have struggled. And then you've got others, you know, with the soda guy. Gosh, I'm missing his name now. Beach Tribe, thanks. And Kombucha 49, and some are kind of making it there. Kind of what's your inspiration for this, and what have you maybe learned from looking at some of the other water beverage type folks at this point that give you maybe a path that you think is going to give you some runway on this thing, particularly given what I assume is a pretty significant capital investment up front to get this deep water source.
Yeah, thanks, Kai. We see the market niches as being not something that's covered by any of the other competitors right now. There's a lot of bottled water out there. You can bottle water, smart water. If you pay $3 for a bottle of smart water, it's not working, right? So we want to be able to do something that we think is it does have unique selling points with the trace elements, and it has brand recognition. We think and we hope it's going to be different in that sense, and that's what we aim at. Aiming at an endurance athletes market, and trying and other endurance users, and want to maybe follow the Arc'teryx or the gourmet clothing that is really expensive and people don't need, but they spend a ton of money on it. So that's what inspires us. Hi.
Tell us what you learned from your first SBIR.
Okay. What I learned from my first SBIR is that, number one, it's a lot harder to get an SBIR than I ever thought. I'm batting 1 for 13 right now. So don't ever give up. And inspiration, credit, tip of the hat to Pat Simpson on that, press on. What I learned from the actual conduct of the process was I need to be much better at financial management than I am. And I need to try to not get flustered. There were enormous hassles with COVID and not getting the parts, and the parts didn't work, and we were isolated in quarantine and things, several months of deadline. Absent all that, the hiccups of COVID, what I learned is that especially with USDA, they're a very open agency for telling us they want me to tell them what my ideas are, and they'll fund it if they like it. So as different from, say, NSF or something like that. So financial management is my weak point, and that's where I need to get stronger.
What about what you learned in terms of the product development or the research side of it?
Oh, thank you. The process that we have it's our secret sauce. It's kind of like Coca-Cola's recipe. Not going to tell anybody, not going to patent it, but it's different than anything else. We have higher electrolytes than any other deep ocean water, say Kona Deep, for example. And that's what we've perfected in Hawaii, the proper way to treat the water that it comes out. And so technically it was a great success, but it was the most difficult 5 weeks of Hawaii life that I ever had. So it was really quite a challenge. Oh, and if you're going to buy a piece of technical equipment, talk to engineers, don't talk to salespeople. Because salespeople just promise you anything, sure, no problem. Heavens to Bitsy, so anyway, so talk to engineers. Sir.
Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
I am curious with. Thanks for your presentation. I'm curious with the SBIR process. Do you feel like that, what do you feel like that helped? How did that make a difference? Because it sounds like a real pain to go through and to put in 13 different applications. And I'm just curious, was it worth the effort? Did you learn something from the process? How did that, really help move you along?
It's an enormous confidence booster. I failed my first time in SBIR back in about 2005. And I realized that particular concept, which was drugs from the ocean, did not work. But inspired by the idea, well, what can I come up with? What's going to sell? And this particular topic hit on the first try. So I was delighted by that. And that's a huge confidence builder. Even though there were enormous difficulties with it, I said, I can do this. And I'm going to prove to the world that it's not a one-off fluke. I'm going to do this more. So
excellent. And I've got a follow-up question for you. And this is a little bit tongue in cheek, but I've always been told that you're not supposed to drink the ocean water. And so I'm curious, how can we drink your water? I'm assuming it's not just, seawater. So what am I missing?
It's good for you. Don't have an honest face. So we process it in a way that takes out most, but not all of the salt, and leaves in enough salt and enough of the trace elements that we think it's still good. We have spent a lot of money on laboratory analysis to get to this point, and proper way of treating the water and anyway, that's the secret part. But yeah, it's very potable, and did taste tests on it and blended it with I forgot the name of the seaweed, with seaweed for flavor and things like that. And let's see, and hope to sell our salt to companies like these guys. Anyway, okay.
Thank you.
When it comes to branding,
Mhm.
kind of two questions. Why are you doing this? And then who do you really want to help with this product?
Why am I doing this? I think that there's a niche in the market that is not being filled now. And I think it's an economic opportunity for Alaska. And I'm inspired by people like all of you in this room, by people like Hans Vogel and Pat Simpson, who are doing things in Alaska that really are kind of surprising. Are they really getting done here? Isn't that cool? And I'm inspired by people like Patrick Sullivan, who shows, and it's part of what I think can be done in Alaska. And so helping in the sense of economic development for myself, for others. And what was your second question, please?
Who are you really trying to help with this? Like, who would your audience be?
Oh, anybody who needs endurance athletic support, such as warfighters, such as endurance athletes, wellness people in medical professions. And that's where I think the market is.
For the novices in the room, if there are any other than me, what is an SBIR? And do you plan on making this product attainable for the general market as far as its price point, or is it going to, be for a specific market?
SBIR stands for Small Business Innovative Research, and it's related to the Small Business Technology Transfer programs that some but not all federal agencies have. It's quite a challenge to go through and to get the grants. And PTAC at Alaska Small Business Development Center has a phase 0 and SBIR that gives you $5,000 or $10,000, helps you get going on stuff like that. Different agencies have different approaches and different willingness to entertain ideas. USDA is very broad-minded. NSF is pretty broad-minded. Defense is not. They want a green left-handed widget. You better invent a green left-handed widget. But there's a lot to be done in the SBIR realm. The act got reauthorized again. And the reason I go with SBIR as opposed to, say, Salt and Still Kennedy grants is because I can keep my information secret, my discoveries and innovation secret, as opposed to some of the other grants where you have to share it. And sir, was there a second question? I'm sorry. Oh, price point. That's to be determined. My wish, completely qualitative magic wand, is to be above regular old markets like these guys, like Alaska Glacier, to be up closer to Pedialyte, and but maybe not quite that high. So, but that's a very, very good question to be determined.
So you are building a big, complicated company. From my layman's perspective, you've got the complexities of pulling water from the ocean and building a pipeline and what that whole thing looks like. And then you've got the plant, the desalination, and then you have, manufacturing and shipping and logistics. And then the bigger one is branding and getting your product to market. What are you doing to de-risk those? And maybe there's more aspects that I missed. What are you doing to de-risk those, stages of building the company so that you can, anyhow, what are you doing to de-risk those aspects?
Yeah. Step 1, going through the Upstart Alpha program. Step 2, going through G Beta. Step 3 is learning what else I can from other entrepreneurs. We applied to USDA for a phase 2 grant, got rejected to our great chagrin, but that provides the template with which to go to angel investors. The complicated part of the project is, you're quite correct, once it leaves our plant. The manufacturing, the technical process is from my point of view, is pretty straightforward. For example, the pipeline to deep ocean water that's a mile offshore, 150 meters deep, that's bread and butter. So, but yes, you're quite correct. Once we get it there, make it, okay, now what? Is anybody going to buy it? That's our challenge. And that's why I'm in these programs.
And so how can you, I mean, I guess let's talk money then. What's the biggest expense? Like what's it cost to build a pipeline to get it into sewage so that you have enough water in the lab to play with so that you can have enough product to start sampling out?
Won't even build a pipeline. We'll have a hose with a weight on the end. And we have a boat charter that's going to prick it out and take it out and drop it for us. Have a pump on shore. And you can use a big pump and get a lot of water right away. You can use a small pump and just let it run and run and run. Put it into IBCs, industrial bulk carriers, those sort of big bottles in a cages kind of thing, and ship those into our workspace in Seward. So there's no actually building of a pipeline. There's no permit required. There's no permit required from the state of Alaska to withdraw the water. We will have an issue with discharge of brine, but we can sell, I hope, most of the brine to salt companies.
And then, thank you for that explanation. Very helpful. And then talk me through then the desalination at this sort of exploratory phase. What does that look like before you scale up and buy all of the equipment you need to do?
Sure. The biggest technical lesson that I learned in Hawaii was how to make what I want to make in just small pilot scale specific quantities, or not even pilot scale, proof of concept. So prove the concept. Okay, this is how I'm going to treat the water to get what I want in the constituents I want. That's done. So now I need a bigger machine with which to do that. But it's the same basic process ramped up.
I wanted to follow up on that, Steve, because, you know, I started off really curious about how you're going to deal with the logistics, which is the classic Alaska problem of, okay, we've got a product, how are we going to get it out there? And there's some interesting areas. But picking up on Catherine's, I'm just wondering if you've considered and tinkered around with two lines of thought. One is, in terms of keeping this scaled small, I'm so impressed with some of the breweries that I've seen that rather than going overboard, building out a bunch of future equipment and then collapsing under the weight of their capitalization before they develop the market, got into these microbrewery stuff where they just started off doing 1 barrel at a time. And then they, you know, went to 5 barrel systems, and then they went to larger systems. And I'm wondering if you've, you know, thought about kind of along the lines of what Catherine was talking about in terms of de-risking of, rather than building a pipeline, for example, starting off and just chartering the boat and going out there and sucking up 100 gallons for processing purposes and come back and make a, you know, the equivalent of a microbrewery batch to sell and do the taste testing, do the beach tribe stuff where you're just down at the markets testing the stuff. I mean, so impressed with these folks that kind of did this micro growth strategy in that. So kind of question A is this de-risking. Is there a path to kind of keep this thing small so that the capital investment kind of goes with the market development? The other part is I'm super interested in whether or not there's other markets for this water. If you suck it out of the ground, can you put a label on it and say, this is really cool water that others might want to use, so that you could create maybe a wholesale market in addition to your retail market? So you could have a retail one that has your branding, your essences and flavors and whatnot, but maybe there's others that would want the raw material. So two questions layered in there, sorry. Plus I'm always interested in logistics, but that's just kind of a known tough problem.
As part of the phase 2 process, I did a lot of analysis, financial and logistic analysis about what's the cheapest and best and most reliable way to get the water to shore, the seawater. And the pipeline is by far the best because vessel charter costs are so high, and I can only carry so much at a time. So that's a pretty straightforward process. De-risking with capital investment, I got a better idea. These guys, they're willing to co-pack for us. This is Steam Dot, Jonathan White. And so I can use, we haven't signed any deal yet, but he's very willing to support this and to do co-packing for us, and have to figure out a way to charge the can with nitrogen so it doesn't get squishy and that sort of thing. So yeah, the capital equipment that I see for myself, at least in the first year, 2, 3, whatever it is making the water in bulk. So then I have a 6,000 gallon container that I take to Jonathan's shop, or maybe people told me I should talk to Jesse Janes at Zip Kombucha, people like that. But yes, co-packing where I don't have to invest in the canning process. And sir, your other question was?
The other thing I was curious about is there a wholesale side of the market?
Oh,
somebody might want your water, and maybe you've got something there to be able to sell that might then help with the scaling some of the background process?
Kai, I was afraid you'd never ask. On Maui is produced ocean organic vodka, and it's produced with the deep ocean water from the Big Island and brought over and up into the mountains. And this cost me $35 about a year or two ago. And I haven't tried it yet, but I don't want to start, you know. So anyways, that's right. Here, let's pass it around. So, but yeah, I agree completely. There's opportunities for my product, unflavored, to be used as a raw material by other people.
Well, I'm thinking back to the microbreweries.
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
are some breweries that want to have some deep ocean water, as feedstock in the
Yeah.
brewery process.
The challenge with that, and it's not, is these guys need a lot less water than a brewery does. And so to provide a brewery with enough water, I'd have to generate a lot of water. A distillery, Alaska Vodka or somebody like that, maybe, who I've not talked to yet, I don't mean to say it, but they would need less, they would need only 1 truckload instead of 20 truckloads.
Steve, I'm curious what your current production capacity is. I mean, are you at a place where you can start shipping some samples to some long distance runners, or where are you at in that process?
All the equipment right now is in the basement of the Alaska Sea Life Center. It's my equipment can produce nominally 600 gallons per day, but it doesn't because working with cold water in this process, it's significantly less. So maybe 300 gallons. The next step is to repair the machine from the tweaking I had to do in Hawaii to get it to work, because it just wasn't working. Don't believe salesmen. But I'm at a point, or I will be at a point, where I can produce enough product to test, but not enough product to sell.
I'm really curious by that. I mean, why just stop at the testing phase? What do you need to go through before you can sell it?
Bigger machine.
Well, why can't you? I don't understand that.
Okay, if I can produce maybe a dozen bottles a day, maybe a couple dozen bottles a day, okay, then there's a lot of logistics cost involved in getting it to market and getting it labeled. But if I can produce 1,000 bottles a day, then that's what I can do to get into the market, even just hundreds. But yeah, if just producing a little bit, dribble drab, that's I don't see that as being efficient yet. Yeah. So, and by the way, then I have to set up the permitted kitchen and all that to develop that.
So the permitting process for the kitchen and the food safe process could be a barrier, and that's probably going to be a barrier that you'd run into sooner rather than later. But I would just suggest, kind of like what I think Kai may have been trying to come around to, is that doing something that isn't necessarily scalable at first can help you prove out that there's market there.
Oh yeah.
And so the classic example being like Airbnb, where they went around and they founders photographed a bunch of the original places to get the listings and to get to know people and do customer validation and just do some more research. If you were to maybe do some small batches, I mean, 300 gallons a day isn't nothing. You could supply maybe an entire race worth of runners with water at that amount. And so maybe you could, go to a place, prototype some product, get some feedback, and start to build some brand awareness, so that by the time you have the huge production set up, you've already got some market demand built up as well. And we've watched that with Beach Tribe Soda Works and some of the smaller kombucha places as well, where they've started really small with their production, and then they've, just kind of taken steps as they've had the need. So it could be something to explore as another pathway. I just get real scared when I think about like all of the capital that goes into a massive production facility.
Oh yeah.
Before I know for sure that there's going to be sales on the other side.
You bet. So yeah, thanks for that. That's a good tip. We'll check that out.
As a follow-up on that, I certainly suggest you might check with the Zip Kombucha folks, the Bleeding Heart Brewery out in the valley, Beach Tribe, and just kind of talk about this pathway issue of where's the balance between efficiency and simply being able to start getting some traction.
Sure.
I think those ones are all examples of folks that chose to do things that were relatively inefficient to begin with, but it was their way to test their brand and create a name.
Quite right.
And I think at least in the startup world I play with, you're always better off to start small, get that feedback. Don't try and make any money. Don't worry about the fact that you're losing money initially. That's what startups are supposed to do, is they're
Right.
supposed to figure out how to lose as much money as they can in the path of trying to come up with a scalable business.
Yeah.
But if you get caught up in trying to scale from the very beginning, that's the biggest risk, is that you're going to weigh it down with that capitalization, and it's going to get in the way of being able to refine the product and develop the
Yeah.
brand and learn there.
I hear you.
The Bleeding Heart to me is the classic one that just started off literally doing small little barrel batches of stuff. And they developed such a loyal following of people that when it came time, 5 years later, to go off and get the capitalization to get a building and to dramatically scale up, they had built that support for it. But to begin with, it was just one little, one small micro barrel at a time in there. And when you drank all that was in that barrel, they were done for the day.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Anything else?
Okay.
Now, when you're done asking questions, the next question that Kai taught me to anticipate is, what can the 1 million cups do for me?
There you go.
And
All right. Well, that I appreciate it. That saved some breath there.
All right.
Right out of that one, didn't I?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
So can anybody refer me to a bookkeeper or CPA with grant experience? Because I've been through dozens of people who say they can't, they're too busy to help. So please, I'll pass out my business cards. Check with me later, please. Who else should I speak to besides 1 million cups? I'm going to hope to speak to the Seward Chamber of Commerce, for example. And so who else do you think I should talk to, just to build awareness and build support? Do you have any connections to athletes, coaches, and exercise physiologists? That's who I'm interested in contacting. And that's basically it. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. It's fascinating and exciting to see all the things that are taking place right here in our own backyard. And I am here for it. What I am not here for is a slide of, I feel like I'm back in like 1987 with the remote controls, where you just like, if you were slightly off center, you just could not get the thing. There we go. All right. We needed a slide for this. So thank you for joining us for the first part of our 1 million cups. Next, we'd like to host a little discussion about the resources that we have in the community and the availability access to those resources. And this is going to be a little bit more of an informal conversation than more of like a facilitated discussion than it will be a presentation. Now, originally, I had a partner that was going to help me with this piece, but that's okay. I'm prepared to move on, riding solo here. But the first thing that we want to talk about, so the second half of this discussion, we wanted to center around, we had a couple of problem statements, or a couple of goals that we would like to establish. The first one is, how do we target folks that aren't aware that 1 million cups exists? What are some ways? And Kai, are you in the document as well? Yeah. Is there a way that you or somebody could maybe take notes as we go along?
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to do that.
I appreciate that.
I want to kind of expand that, the initial statement. This
Please.
Discussion came around from the question that we were dealing with, and this has been going on for 6 or 7 years. Back when Nigel, showed up the first time in town and said, you guys are just talking to yourselves. You got to get out of your circle. And so this question came up a couple of weeks ago with Alan, and we were talking about the perpetual problem. How do we let folks know who are interested in entrepreneurship and innovation and problem solving to know that there is a startup community? And so we've got pretty good channels to communicate with ourselves, but we don't necessarily have a very good strategy of how do we communicate with everybody else that's doing this. We know that, you know, we're creating hundreds of new businesses a year. If you look at the data from the state of Alaska, and indeed some of the data suggests thousands, but I don't believe all that. But, you know, we're trying to figure out how do we let folks know that this exists, and get outside of the circle of the current choir. That's doing with this. So 1 Million Cups is certainly a piece of this, in terms of how do we let more people know that 1 Million Cups is back and doing this, and how do we really reach the folks that wouldn't even know what a startup community is. And that's the whole problem, is we have this whole thing, but we know what it is, but the rest of the world doesn't even know to ask for what it is. Yeah, Jacqueline.
I think one of the biggest challenges we have is it's just super hard to carve out time, you know, to come here, even though we all know that there's real value in working together. Something that Mark Lambert told me about a few years ago has always appealed to me, and that is, he said in San Diego, they have some like marketing firms just starting up, how to, you know, take some of their precious time and be here and give that to someone else. But I think if we had something that offered people services that was a bit of a draw and was at a more reasonable hour, I think coming at 9 on a Wednesday, and I'm not saying to supplant 1 Million Cups, but to augment 1 Million Cups. So you had a monthly event in which you invite the would-be entrepreneurs to come, get real services, get real advice, and then encourage them to come. So that's one idea.
So we had a similar conversation with David and with Jasmine about the challenge of Wednesdays at 9. And we found that nationally, Kaufman has found that Wednesday is sort of the day and the morning is really sort of the time. 9 is when they really push for. But we got feedback that 9 on Wednesdays is the right around the time that school drop off is, and that folks are having to maybe miss coming because, you know, their kids need to be at school at 8:50. And so we're going to try we're going to try in January when we fire 1 Million Cups back up again. We're going to try starting at 10. And we're going to see if pushing it back an hour then makes it easier for people to come. I think we're going to get a little bit of a trade-off going on, because that then pushes you an hour into the work week and maybe, or into the work day, and could maybe cause some challenges there. But I do think that it's worth trying to see, is there some flexibility there that could make it easier for more folks to be able to come. And I think your point of having some other kind of like side or connected events to sort of like let people know is a great point.
I think sorry.
I definitely think that the time is an issue. Is there any reason that we couldn't hold these things outside of business hours, you know, after 5 o'clock or something? And then secondly, I actually really enjoy the weekly aspect of the schedule opposed to monthly, because it creates more opportunity for someone to coordinate their schedule to make, you know, maybe if they can't make it once a month, they can find one day out of the month that does work. And then that will, you know, prevent the meetings from being too convoluted, you know, with speakers and information, if they're able to spread it out a little bit. I'm just becoming aware of 1 Million Cups, and I'm really glad to be here and be part of the discussion.
Excuse me. And again, just on Rican's time issue, because I'd really like to shift a little bit more into how do we access the people that don't know we're here.
Yeah.
The time issue is its own little thing. And Mark's point is well made, which is what they do is the 1 Million Cups there still happens every Wednesday morning, but they have a separate once a month activity that's a little different thing that provides the issue. But here's the deal, and I chatted with people nationally, and Catherine probably knows more of this than I do, but there's no good time to do this. You know, if you do it in the evenings, then working parents, you know, that are working other jobs, they can't come because they may be working evening shifts. If they've got kids, they're at home, they got to take care of kids. If you do it during the mornings, you've got to deal with school drop-off times. There isn't a time that you all magically have people sitting around free without time. And arguably the folks, if we're dealing with trying to increase equity and access, evenings is even harder because there's so many more obligations in there, but it is a matter of time. So, but like I said, I think there's reasonable options. We're going to try shifting 1 hour to get off of the Anchorage School District 9 o'clock start. That makes some sense to try that for a while. We have experimented and want to experiment with some sort of evening once a month type of thing. Mark's, you know, brought that up before, it would do that. But I really am interested, you know, a little bit more if we can, and this is where we started off a couple of weeks ago, is how do we reach the folks that don't even know about any of this? So if we did something in the evening, how would they know that we were doing it? If we're doing 1 million cups, how would they know we were doing this? You know, that's the bigger challenge to me, is how do we figure out how to get access to the folks that might be interested in any of this, or even to be able to find out that there's an SBDC to go to, that they ought to start there, or maybe there's an upside alpha. I mean, once you get into the ecosystem, there's a lot here. I'm trying to figure out how do we get more people into the ecosystem. I know the question there, and maybe Lena also. So.
Oh, I have so many thoughts.
Yeah,
This is the part of the entrepreneur like marketing puzzle that I just love, because you're really thinking, you're really thinking of your target market, right? If you consider this a business in a sense, and you think of who your audience is, one, you have to figure out where they are, you have to figure out what they like, and then you have to figure out what kind of values you're providing them. So I guess my first question would be, where are all these entrepreneurs? Because the ones that I'm starting to meet feel so isolated and so alone in starting a business. So trying to find them, and there's like all these little, especially female driven like networking groups I'm seeing just pop up on social media. And why couldn't you partner with them? Why couldn't you invite them and their group and be like, hey, at least, you know, start with the gatekeepers and whoever's working those, like, come to this event, you know, let's partner for this event. There's so many of them. So that would be one thought, is partner with other networking events. My other thought would be providing the value to the entrepreneurs and like really letting them know, okay, this is what you're going to receive when you come to these 1 million cups is X, Y, and Z. Because really it's like, okay, I come, I listen, but you know, I'm building community and network and things like that. Like, what are they actually receiving from that? So that's one thought, is networking events. What value providing was my other thought. Oh, you said you have hundreds of businesses you've helped like yearly?
No, I was referring to the business statistics off the state of Alaska.
Okay.
We've got hundreds of new businesses
Yes.
being created every year in terms of business licenses being taken out.
Oh,
There's actually thousands, you know, a bunch of that doesn't matter, but there's hundreds of new businesses being
Yeah,
created, but
absolutely.
we don't even know where they're at. And the reality is, you go to get a business license from the state of Alaska, and they won't tell you how to start a community or any of the resources going on.
That would be a place to
I've
start.
also got a question from or a hand up from Melanie here. So I think Beth Noah's got a question here, and I want to get to Melanie also.
I love what you said about talking to the leaders of other organizations. And if we don't already have a presence on social media, I think that's very important for people to be directed to, you know, be able to do their own research before they come. I know that before I came here, I didn't really know what to expect. So it would be great to define the mission a little bit, give people a fair expectation. Yeah, that was it. Just social media is imperative these days.
Is Melanie able to talk? Or I don't know if we have speakers out for the online folks. Melanie, do you want to, you have a question? Couldn't be that.
I think I might have heard my name, but not very clearly. Sorry, I'm calling from the road. Hopefully it doesn't cut through. One other thought, since there's only 1 million cups in all of Alaska that's being hosted, obviously from Anchorage, one big group of folks that I see are missing are all the economic development corporations and the chambers of commerce. And for example, it would have been great to have the Stewart Chamber of Commerce here today, and perhaps the Kenai Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development Corporations that are nearby, to showcase, perhaps maybe it's on a monthly basis, showcase a different area area of Alaska. And that's one thing that I love most about Alaska Startup Week is hearing what is going on around our state that we don't hear about on a weekly basis. So perhaps there is once a month a feature on a certain location in Alaska to hear what's going on, hear an entrepreneur from that area, collaborate with that Chamber of Commerce, that Economic Development Corporation, and gather folks from other parts of the state, even though obviously a lot of the value of 1 million cups is the in-person component. Bringing in other folks from across the state helps spread the word out.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, Molly.
Excellent. Any other thoughts on targeting folks that aren't currently part of our ecosystem? How we can reach other people?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I was thinking the business departments at APU, UAA, and UAF and UAS. Perhaps there are similar organizations at the high school level, but certainly with Bob Gillum's old outfit, McKinley Capital, had this whole, maybe still has a whole program of educating specific business analysts for their investment process. So they work with the university people. And I think that maybe some of the business majors might be interested in this sort of thing.
Are you asking people to share? I mean, that's the biggest thing I've learned is just, if you have a product and you want to sell it, you just repeat and repeat and repeat your message over and over and over again. So are you actually like all of us here right now, are you actually gonna be like, hey, after this, will you please tag it or share it or email somebody a link? Like, are you actually pushing people, the people that have been here, to spread the word as well?
David, have you been pushing you to?
Yes, yeah, in the idea of, we've been talking about this, and one of the things, obviously, we have our Facebook that we posted on. We also have it on LinkedIn that's been shared on, and also just the word of mouth. And as we meet more entrepreneurs, just letting them know that the 1 million cups is here, once a week on Wednesday at 9 o'clock and stuff like that. And one of the things that we're going to push for, in January is obviously, as Kai said, we're going to try to bring the entrepreneurs from this side of town, because there's a lot of them, but a lot of them don't know about it. But as we stated about the school schedule, so that's where we're going to move it to 10 o'clock. And hopefully with the idea of moving it to 10 o'clock, those entrepreneurs that have kids in school, they'll be able to come and present. And then also focusing on Black History Month. We're going to line up people to come for that month also. So it's just moving forward and really getting, because obviously we're in this side of town, reaching to the entrepreneurs on this side of town. So if that's a success, then we can just kind of spread from there, spread our wings from there.
Excellent question. I think that's a good reminder to all of us, the folks that are here every week, that do, are sold to this event, that we need to redouble our efforts to keep pushing that word out. I was thinking, I pitched everyone to check in while they were here, took a couple of pictures, and I forgot to post those. So there was a missed opportunity. That's right. So I'm going to hand this to Ryan while I tweet.
I guess you guys are in the room. And so I'm assuming that you believe that there is some sort of value that comes from being here and being in the room. But I'm making that assumption. Is this actually a valuable event for us to be hosting on a weekly basis? Do you guys what brings you here? Why do you care? Should we keep doing this? I think that's my first question. And then kind of along with that is, for Noah, and thinking back to the first time that you guys came to one of these events, what brought you here? And is that maybe a different value than the value that brings you here today? So let me just stack several questions up all at once here for you.
If I may speak first, just because you called me out there. If I've learned anything in, you know, just this, this entrepreneurial journey I started this March, it's that nobody does it alone. You know, like the people who talk about self-made, I think that's totally egotistical and wrong. Everybody needs learning and support. And that's, you know, what I'm here for is to learn. And, you know, my inspirations, people like Jasmine, you know, take what they've learned and they infuse the community with that knowledge and, you know, improve everybody's life. And so that's really, you know, I love community and I have so much more to learn than I already know. And, you know, 2 heads are better than 1 and, you know, 10 is even better than that. So whatever issues that one is faced with, you know, if that is voiced to the group, you know, I'm sure that there are resources or at least directions that we can point each other in, you know, like financial management, you know, that's a huge point of struggle and area of growth that I need to work on as well. So, you know, maybe we could figure out some kind of like workshops into the schedule for like true construction of the entrepreneurial, you know, development and mindset. But yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. So I think I'm hearing community and the connection to folks, the ability to learn and crowdsource information, that just sense of connection, and maybe the ability to access some more information and learn and grow. Those are some of the values that you're seeing from coming to events like this.
Absolutely.
You look like you've got some thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would ask, you know, Steve, what his value for our entrepreneurs that spend the time to make presentations and have the courage to get up and talk to people. And there's a million ways that we're asking entrepreneurs to spend their time. And I think making this an event that is valuable enough for them to do that would be my first priority. The second priority would be making this event valuable for entrepreneurs like Noah to show up to and find a community. And thirdly is a space for the rest of us who watch and try and help, but you know, build community. But like ultimately, I think it should be this event's purpose to make sure that the entrepreneurs we're serving are getting what they need out of it. And if we aren't, I don't think we should be asking them to come and spend their time on it. So that's my opinion.
Yes, there you go.
Thanks. The reason I'm here today, the reason I'm interested in this is a couple of reasons. Number one, just dress rehearsal, not even dress rehearsal. First debut, getting over my nerves. I mean, I've taught at college level, and you know, the butterflies and all that sort of thing. And I've even spoke to, bear with me, this is horrifying. I've spoken to high school classes. So so yeah, I mean, but here I'm really kind of showing everything, so to speak. So that's the first thing. And I figured that this business-friendly audience here is going to be easier to talk to and a better way to start than, say, an investor, an angel who's got really tough questions and who really wants to nail me down. And so it's a way to start. It's a way to learn. And did I get anything out of it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that. What I hope to get in the future is, well, I don't know, maybe I can help somebody else. Maybe I can cheer on, that sort of thing. But yeah, like what Noah said, we can all have ideas and help out. So that's
Jack, I'll take it for a second. Some announcements also. You know, as we kind of wrap up on this thing, the other place this discussion was going, and we were, you know, talking about this a couple of weeks ago, is the idea of building on, you know, what you mentioned, Jacqueline, with Mark and the monthly things. Is we used to have a speaker series in the wintertime and a speed dating kind of speed coaching kind of event where we get folks together, and we had a boot camp. This goes back in the Al Herman days with Entrepreneurship Edge, you know, 2000, well, almost 10 years ago. So we've been exploring the question of, should we try and gin up some sort of kind of on-ramp into the ecosystem for people to kind of find access to service providers and to get access to those. But it then led us to the question of, well, how are we gonna let people know we're doing it? Because we already know how to talk to ourselves. And so that, again, that gets us back to the question of how do we expand the circle of folks that even know that any of these resources exist? Because that's always been one of the main functions of 1MCups, is it's been kind of our front door. People come here, we say, oh, you need to go talk to, Zip Kombucha, or you need to go talk to SBDC. Did you know they exist? And we use this as kind of a place to triage where are folks at and where are those first connections. So we were talking about some of these events this winter, but it backed us up into the question of, well, we could organize some events, but would we just be inviting ourselves to go to another event? Or can we come up with some way to actually strategically, purposely, and significantly expand the awareness that Alaskans have of this entrepreneurial ecosystem, all the resources that are out there, including doing some programs this winter. That's where we'd like to go with this, but we're still trying to crack the nut on how we do that. We have, a zillion newsletters that go out, and each newsletter is great. It talks about everybody's programs, but we're not growing the circles as much as we think we might want to be able to.
I think Jacqueline's idea was a good one. With that about.
Good to see you. Catherine, when did you start this? 2013? 2014. Yeah.
So what was it like before the pandemic? I mean, and where were you guys located?
So before the pandemic, we'd been meeting at Writer's Block for a couple of years over in Spenard area, and it generally had 20 or 30 folks showing up to that. And prior to that, we had been at the Muse for a while after the boardroom at the Key Bank building had moved out of there. And we didn't have a location. There we could fill up the place sometimes. There you could have 40 or 50 people stack up in the Muse. And then prior to that, it was at the boardroom of the Key Bank building. And that one would have, anywhere from 20 to 40 or 50 people in there. And the other thing that was significant, and those were periods where a lot of continuity had been built up. So it takes a while to get a mass of folks. But what was also significant is we had a really nice mix of entrepreneurs, service provider, folks providing marketing and legal and accounting kind of stuff showing up. But also we had investors that were showing up because they were coming to the event to see a preview of somebody maybe they might be interested in talking to for investment. But 1MCups was kind of their way to just kind of sit back and see, can this person present? Do they have a reasonable business plan? Can they answer questions? And it was kind of their way to vet whether or not they would then get invited to come pitch to one of the funds. So anyway, we got it restarted now. I kind of view us in kind of a rebuilding mode at this point.
And when you guys, before the pandemic and all that, were you guys advertising the same way as you're advertising now, or was it different?
I would say that it was the same or less. I mean, at this point, we got the digest coming out once a week. We've got the Facebook page. We got the Facebook group. We've got the LinkedIn page. We share the stuff to the startups group. We share it to the startups page at this point. It's probably out there in more places than it was before. Again, if you're in those places. I do think though that the quality of marketing and promotion that CED can do with their reach and the quality of their posts and whatnot, they're really much better at creating posts and sharing them than I think, what we've been doing. And when it was at the boardroom, Catherine and that place had its own energy and vibe. I mean, that was our living room for our community, and people wanted to be down at the boardroom and wanted to go there. And as Catherine, said, a month ago or so at one of these earlier discussions, she viewed the actual presentation portion of 1MCups to be kind of like about 20% of the value, because it was all of the discussions that people had that would stick around for an hour, chit-chatting and networking. And, oh, did you meet this person? Oh, let me introduce you to this person. Right. That people came because of the value of the networking that happened. And I think these events that we've done for the past couple of months here, for the most part, have had that. If people have shown up here, for the most part, folks, I believe from what I've seen, because I've watched people stick around here for half an hour to an hour later, you know, we've been starting to reestablish that networking benefit. So that the presentations are important, but it is the collaboration network that's happening here.
I think this location has great, potential. Yes, thank you. Potential for that community to be built because, you know, it's still in the infantile stages of this co-working space. So as more people become aware of Umoja, it'll naturally attract people to these meetings. This will be a real comfortable place we can take pride in here too.
I think
Eventually.
so. And I appreciate David and Jasmine have made it available. So if folks came here for this meeting, they didn't have to rush right out, that they made it open for us to go grab one of the hot desks and stick around for a while, with the idea that this would not only be a convenient place to come meet, have a good meeting, a valuable discussion, networking, but you don't have to rush off. I know Ryan and I typically go run over and have another discussion, and we're here till noon or so. So it's been great that David and getting this thing up and started have provided that flexibility so that this can actually be a productive place to be, so that it's not out of the way and doesn't have to interrupt the rest of the busy morning. So probably time to kind of wrap up here. And I wanted to grab Steve. So we've got the Alaska Investor Network meeting going on tonight. Anybody's interested? Steve, I was going to mention, are you aware of the Alaska Investor Network, the Angel Group?
Recall hearing about it a little bit.
Okay.
The answer is no.
Okay, so they meet monthly. They're meeting tonight, 7 o'clock at King Street. And they've kind of got this open deal kind of set up now so that, you know, accredited and non-accredited folks, but it's basically a potential place for you to find some of the investor community and folks that might be interested.
Alaska Investor Network.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, any rate, that and all the regular stuff is in the Startup Digest. It comes out most every week. So that's all I got for today.
I'd love to stick around and continue to talk to you wonderful people, and I'm excited to continue to get to know you. I'll be here next week. I gotta get a pregnant lady to an appointment.
All right, good to see you, Noah. All right. Anything else for today? Our fearless facilitator MC ran out on us. Any other announcements? Anybody want to? No. Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you know of someone who'd like to present, please let us know. I think we're off next week until January, right? David was going to do some sort of holiday startup open house next week in one of the evenings. So next week is going to, I think, be one of those evening-y kind of opportunities. So we'll let you know about that. So we're off next week, and then we get into Christmas, New Year's, and then we'll be back starting at the 10 o'clock spot when we get started in January again.
So I see Melanie has had to exit, but I know the 49th State Angel Fund Community All Call is happening tomorrow.
Yes.
And so that's just one more thing that's going on this week.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and
is there an email list or calendar?
yeah, the Alaska Startup Digest is kind of the list of lists that comes out weekly. And so it usually comes out on Tuesdays. So Alaska Startup Digest, if you subscribe to that, you'll get it. There's also, if you go to akv3.com, you'll find the calendar that's on there. And there's also on the startup resources under akv3.com. You'll also find a link to all of the newsletters, including the digest on there, because the digest is one I try to aggregate.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the new year.
Probably a dozen other startup